The crack of a gunshot shattered the peaceful Saturday morning like a hammer through glass. Claire dropped to one knee, her hand flashing to her hip where her service weapon usually rested. But today, visiting her parents in a quiet suburb, she was unarmed, dressed in jeans and a faded FBI Academy hoodie. I yanked the front door open, the slam echoing as I sprinted onto the porch, heart hammering. Across the lawn, my daughter stood calm as stone, a pistol barrel pointed at her chest by a man with a face red as a fire hydrant. It took a second to register. Doug, the HOA's so-called security officer, a guy whose only battlefield was probably a Costco coupon argument, had pulled a gun on my daughter. He had no idea she was an FBI tactical commander who could dismantle him in 3 moves without messing up her hair. That morning had started like a postcard. Sun bright, lawns mowed, the smell of bacon grilling in the air. Claire arrived with her usual smile, handing me a bag of donuts. We laughed, catching up after her last assignment. She parked her Jeep halfway over a faded visitor parking line, barely visible even if you squinted. Nobody cared. Nobody except Doug. I heard his high-pitched bark before I saw him, the squeal of tires as he raced his battered HOA golf cart like he was chasing a bank robber. Claire hadn't even grabbed her coffee before Doug screeched to a halt, waving a clipboard like a weapon. Things escalated faster than anyone could believe. "You can't park here!" Doug shrieked, spittle flying as he puffed up his chest. Claire, calm as ever, leaned against her Jeep, arms crossed. She asked where it said visitors couldn't park. Doug fumbled with his clipboard, muttering about unwritten guidelines, then demanded ID. Claire, who'd seen this game in far more dangerous places, smiled and declined. That flipped a switch in Doug. His face went crimson, his hands shook. Then, in the dumbest move of his life, he drew the gun from his belt. Standing on the porch, I froze. 1,000 thoughts collided. Should I run? Shout? Call 911? Claire gave a tiny head shake. Stay back. She had it under control. Doug screamed about citizens' arrests, suspicious persons, defending HOA integrity, sounding like a kid playing sheriff. Neighbors peeked from bushes, phones raised, some laughing, thinking it was a skit. Then Doug racked the slide on his gun, whether to fire or look tough, and the mood turned terrifying. Claire didn't flinch. Her stance relaxed, like she was negotiating with an angry chihuahua. She spoke slowly, evenly, with a voice that made bigger men rethink their choices. "Do you really want to escalate this, Doug?" He screamed louder, demanding she get on the ground. Claire's eyes flicked to the crowd, calculating. She reached slowly into her pocket. Doug's finger twitched on the trigger. My body screamed to tackle him, but I knew Claire. She wasn't just a field agent. She was a tactical commander, trained for hostage crises, bomb threats, active shooters. Doug was a mosquito to her. From her pocket, she pulled a slim black wallet. Doug barked, claiming it was a weapon. Claire flicked it open, holding it up. The gold badge gleamed in the sunlight. Federal Bureau of Investigation. The cul-de-sac went silent. You could hear a neighbor's phone drop. Doug's mouth flapped like a fish on land. Claire's voice, calm and cold, cut through. "You've just committed aggravated assault on a federal officer?" She listed his crimes: brandishing a firearm illegally, impersonating an officer, unlawful detainment. "Anything to say before I call backup?" Doug's gun sagged. His eyes darted, seeking support. But the neighbors who once cheered his antics now filmed in horror. He stammered about HOA authorization, community standards. Claire tilted her head, like watching a sad courtroom drama. With a flick of a hidden mic in her hoodie, she spoke. "Dispatch, Agent Claire Matthews, badge 87392. Armed individual threatening a federal officer. Immediate backup requested." Doug's knees buckled, his gun clattered to the ground. He dropped, hands raised, blubbering about mistakes. Sirens roared, growing louder. I stepped off the porch as Claire stood over Doug, patient as if waiting for a mosquito to stop buzzing. Her eyes said it all. Doug thought he could control the situation with a gun and a made-up title. He didn't know he'd picked a fight with one of the deadliest women on the East Coast, and she hadn't even touched him. Doug tried to explain, but Claire's voice cut through, soft and cold as frozen steel. "Are you even licensed to carry that firearm?" His eyes went wild, stammering about community protection, Second Amendment. He never answered. Claire watched, knowing he was burying himself. Neighbors clustered, recording, whispering. Doug tried barking orders, calling it a private matter. Claire held up her badge, stating calmly that tampering with a federal investigation was a crime. The crowd backed off, phones still up, but silent. Doug's hand twitched toward his belt, maybe for a fake badge. Claire's eyes sharpened. Any further movement could be seen as a threat. Doug froze, fingers twitching in the air. Claire stepped forward, her voice low, like in an interrogation room before a confession. "Do you have any legal right to carry that weapon, issue demands, or threaten citizens?" Doug's lip quivered. Nothing came out. Claire nodded, pleased by the silence. She updated dispatch, noting the suspect was subdued, compliant, awaiting local law enforcement. Doug babbled about HOA protocol, neighborhood watch, but nobody listened. The crowd's curiosity turned to disapproval. Parents shielded kids. Retirees shook their heads. Even Mrs. Harrove, the neighborhood busybody, looked ready to bury Doug. Sirens shrieked closer. Doug's head whipped around like a trapped animal. Claire stood, hands loose, a quiet force of nature, while Doug squirmed, knowing he'd humiliated himself before the people whose approval he craved. Then Karen, the HOA president, stormed in like a discount dictator, clipboard thick as a phone book, scowl curdling milk. She pointed at Claire, demanding answers, shouting about private HOA jurisdiction, non-residents having no rights. Claire barely looked at her, raising her badge and stating she was a federal agent operating under legal authority due to a felony assault. Karen shifted gears, insisting Claire was impersonating law enforcement, claiming the HOA could detain anyone. Claire let her rant for 30 seconds, then spoke. "Interfering with a federal investigation is obstruction of justice, a felony." Karen faltered, muttering about lawsuits, constitutional amendments. Doug, seeing his ally unravel, crawled toward any defense. Squad cars skidded into the cul-de-sac, lights flashing, officers pouring out. They saw the badge, the trembling HOA officer, and moved fast. Claire briefed them calmly, laying out facts while Doug sweated through his shirt. One officer secured Doug's firearm, another cuffed him, reading his rights. Doug whimpered about not knowing she was FBI. Nobody cared. It didn't matter what he thought. It mattered what he did. Brandishing a firearm, threatening a federal agent, impersonating authority. He was done. Ranting about bylaws. The sergeant, with zero patience for suburban drama, warned her to stop or face charges. Karen shut up, glaring at the pavement. The crowd buzzed, phones capturing every second. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a viral moment. As Doug was driven away, Claire allowed a tiny smile, not of victory, but of satisfaction that a bully had been stopped. She turned to me, voice light. "Any coffee left?" I nodded, leading her inside, leaving behind a stunned neighborhood witnessing poetic justice. Claire strolled back to the house, casual as if she'd finished a jog, not neutralized an armed idiot. I handed her coffee, still in shock. She smiled, sitting at the kitchen table, asking if the neighborhood was always this dramatic. I laughed, the absurdity hitting me. Outside, the show was just beginning. Word spread like wildfire. Neighbors who missed it arrived, pestering witnesses. Smartphones flashed, stories grew wild. Some said Doug had an automatic weapon. Others swore Claire flipped him like a martial artist. Claire sipped her coffee, suggesting we check if Doug acted alone or if other HOA security were armed. I hadn't thought of that. She tapped her phone, looping in colleagues for a quick sweep. Soon, an officer called. They'd found another security member with an illegal baton and a disguised taser. No permits, just entitlement. The HOA security might be operating without authority. A civil violation, maybe criminal. Claire thanked him, smiling like she'd been handed a puzzle. Neighbors packed our driveway, glancing at the house, hoping for an encore. Some wanted to thank Claire. Others wanted details. Karen reappeared, striding with loyalists, ignoring questions. Claire set her coffee down, opening the door before Karen could knock. Karen accused Claire of harassment, threatening lawsuits against her and the FBI. Claire listened for 45 seconds, then asked if Karen knew Doug had pulled a loaded firearm on a federal agent, a federal crime. Karen blinked, thrown off. Claire continued. If Karen approved the HOA security without licenses, she faced legal exposure. Karen panicked, denying knowledge of weapons, claiming security was a visual deterrent. Claire asked if she'd provide HOA financial records to check for weapon purchases. Karen mumbled about consulting the board and fled. Claire closed the door, grinning. It's about to get really interesting. She explained that small groups with power get sloppy, cut corners, panic when caught, revealing more than intended. She bet the HOA's records led to Karen. By afternoon, police found more security members with pepper spray, illegal stun guns, even brass knuckles. Officers collected items, took statements, and said the investigation was just beginning. Claire watched from the window, unbothered, like seeing a predictable car crash. Local news caught the story. A helicopter buzzed overhead, cameras zooming on the cul-de-sac where HOA law enforcement was exposed as a farce. Reporters nabbed sound bites on the absurdity. The HOA board issued a vague statement about reviewing policies, fooling no one. The next morning, the neighborhood felt different, like a storm had stripped away masks. Gone was HOA harmony, replaced by whispered talks, awkward glances, tension. Claire sat outside with coffee, sunglasses on, scrolling her phone, calm as the volcano rumbled beneath. An HOA emergency meeting was set for the community center, billed as an open forum but clearly a battlefield. The parking lot overflowed. Cars lined curbs, lawns, alleys. The whole neighborhood showed up, some outraged, some scared, some for drama. Inside, tension was thick. Karen stood at the front, flanked by board members regretting their choices. She tapped the microphone, smile tight, launching into platitudes about community concerns and safety improvements. She avoided Doug's name, calling it a misunderstanding. Claire, seated in the back for a clear view, raised an eyebrow. Karen babbled about oversight committees, internal reviews, bureaucratic nonsense to seem proactive without admitting guilt. The crowd nearly let her slide. Then questions hit. An elderly man asked why security had firearms. Karen dodged, claiming no authorization. A quiet woman asked if HOA funds bought confiscated equipment. Karen blanched, promising transparency later. The crowd murmured, restless. Claire stood, introducing herself as an FBI tactical commander involved in the investigation. The room froze. Phones lifted. Board members flinched. Karen looked stung. Claire didn't accuse. She laid out facts. Weapons confiscated, HOA funds used for undisclosed security gear, a federal inquiry into fund misuse and illegal operations. The room exploded. Neighbors shouted questions, accusations, demands. Claire stayed cool, letting chaos swirl while Karen floundered. Some demanded Karen's resignation, others lawsuits, one the HOA's financials now. Karen screamed. Claire was lying, had no jurisdiction, called it a political attack. Claire handed a folded paper to an officer, a formal federal investigation notice. He read it aloud. Karen's supporters vanished. A board member resigned mid-meeting, claiming ignorance. Karen stood alone, facing a furious crowd, her voice breaking as she claimed she only wanted to protect the neighborhood. The community voted to suspend Karen and most of the board, forming an interim committee of sensible volunteers. Claire declined to advise, saying her work was done. She didn't want to run a drama club. She wanted to teach those above the law a lesson. Outside, neighbors thanked Claire, offered pies, apologies. She accepted with dignity, never acting the hero, though she was the only reason the neighborhood wasn't a tragic headline. I watched with fierce pride. My daughter faced a gun, a corrupt HOA, a system built on arrogance without firing a shot or raising her voice. As we walked home, she said she'd return to her base soon for bigger threats. Real bad guys. But she added something that stuck. Sometimes, small battles matter as much as big ones. Stopping a bully reminds everyone justice is real. I nodded, feeling her words weight. The neighborhood felt safe again. Not from gates or fake cops, but because someone said enough. Someone with real authority, not about shouting or sticks, but protecting those who couldn't. That someone was my daughter. Days later, the HOA disaster spread online, hitting local news, even a national morning show. When HOA authority goes wrong. Claire stayed unnamed in media, but locals knew. She earned quiet fame, not by demanding attention, but by standing unshakable when others lost their heads. Karen couldn't walk without eyes on her. Her world collapsed. She resigned, calling it a leave in a frantic Facebook post. Nobody bought it. Anonymous tips sent HOA meeting recordings to authorities. Audits launched into fund mismanagement, tax issues, unauthorized security. Karen faced investigation notices. Doug sat in a cell, his lawyer claiming trauma from imagined threats. Nobody bought that either. Claire laughed, not cruelly, but because power abusers always played victims when consequences hit. Something beautiful emerged. Neighbors talked without suspicion. Kids played freely. Lawn disputes faded. Laughter replaced tension. Claire didn't stay long. Her departure came, and the neighborhood threw an impromptu send-off. Lawn chairs, snacks, a thank you poster with signatures. Claire joked about an HOA SWAT team firm, sparking laughter. She told me privately she wasn't worried. The neighbors, scared silent for years, had forgotten their power, real power, from standing together. She hoped they'd remember. I promised they would. Karma worked. Karen's house went up for sale quietly. Whispers spoke of frozen accounts, lawsuits. Teens staged a Buy Karen parade with signs. She scowled, called the police, retreated. Nobody defended her. Doug faced trial, serious charges, maybe jail. Did he regret it? Probably not. People like him blamed others. The new HOA rewrote rules transparently, posted finances, disbanded security for a volunteer watch running block parties. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Claire's name came up at barbecues, spoken with awe. She stood between the community and a storm, giving others courage. One evening, on the porch with coffee, I thought of it all. Fear, chaos, justice, healing. It wasn't loud news, but it mattered. To kids biking without fear, parents chatting without worry, couples walking freely. Justice came quietly, with strength. From someone who knew power wasn't control, but protection. Somewhere, Claire was doing it again. Different town, same mission. Not for fame or medals, but to ensure bullies, tyrants, and fake kings answered to someone real. Someone who lived justice every day. Someone who never backed down. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with family and friends. Thank you.